Some people don't just want influence, they want control over who gets access to the unseen. They want to regulate revelation. It's a commodity. Only they should own, right? Every generation has people who try to centralize spiritual access. They want to be the only interpreters, the only translators, the only intermediaries between heaven and humanity. These are the ones who pretend they're defenders of the faith, but what they're really defending is their personal territory. They want the gifted to feel like guests at a table they never built. They want revelation to travel through them first. So they want to be the deciding voice on who is anointed enough, ready enough, or qualified enough. This isn't spirituality. This is a monopoly on the supernatural. And whenever someone tries to control something that belongs to God, the chosen rise and destabilize the entire system simply by existing. These individuals, they feel threatened by the gifted because gifted individuals break every barrier simply by being authentic. You don't need to imitate someone's language, rituals, or traditions to hear heaven clearly. Your presence alone disrupts their desire to own power, and they fear you because you don't need their approval. You don't bend to intimidation, and you don't worship their titles. You don't seek validation from their councils or circles. And most of all, your discernment is sharper than their politics. Some people turn spirituality into a market. They turned healing into a product. They turned divine encounters into paywalls. Now understand, there is nothing wrong with service, labor, or exchange. But when people claim exclusive access to the divine, they're no longer leading, they're hoarding. They control who can ascend spiritually, who can speak, who can teach, who can be recognized, and who can sit at the table. They build systems that elevate themselves and silence anyone heaven approves, but they don't. This is spiritual oppression wrapped in religious clothing. Chosen individuals are heaven's antidote to monopolies. You walk in with insight no one trained for. You arrive with a calling no committee voted on, and you carry a voice that wasn't shaped by institutions, but by encounters. You are the reminder that God still speaks outside their walls. God still anoints outside their rules. And God still calls people who don't fit the mold. And that truth destroys their entire hold on power. Spiritual monopolies bury themselves in titles, but the chosen arise from lineage. Your ancestors prayed you here. Your bloodline carries oversight, guidance, and reinforcement. You're not self-made, you're heaven sent. Your arrival exposes the counterfeit. Your presence reveals the ones who've been performing instead of serving. And the moment you step in, their hold on the room weakens because heaven never designed one group to control the spiritual destiny of many. Spiritual monopolies survive by preying on insecurity, exploiting fear, promising exclusive access, creating dependency, demonizing anyone who leaves, punishing anyone who questions, and elevating loyalty over truth. They don't want disciples, they want dependents. They create a hierarchy where they sit at the top and everyone else sits in confusion, waiting to be told what God is saying. This is the opposite of kingdom order. When the gifted break free, of their control, expect retaliation. Expect lies, smear campaigns, gossip, character assassination, and isolation tactics. Because in their world, anyone who walks away isn't making a choice, they're committing treason. They don't see you as a person, they see you as a resource they lost. But what they don't realize is this: you belong to God long before they ever met you. Your authority does not come from their approval, their counsel, their recognition, their rituals, or their ranking. Your authority comes from the one who called you before you ever breathed your first breath. You reclaim your authority by trusting your discernment, listening to divine instruction, following your assignment even when it isolates you, and refusing to bargain with your calling, walking boldly in your insight. When you stand in your true identity, their monopoly collapses. Every monopoly eventually falls because anything that's built on control cannot survive the presence of someone gifted. Because your presence, it liberates, it exposes, it interrupts, it reorders, it reclaims, and it rebuilds. You are sent to break monopolies, not bow to them. When you walk in, heaven walks with you, and anything that tried to own God's voice gets dismantled piece by piece. And this is why they fear you. This is why they monitor you. And this is why they undermine you. Not because you're fragile, but because you're unstoppable. Some monopolies begin in fear. Some begin in insecurity. Some begin in the hunger to control what they cannot create. Every era has individuals who try to centralize the supernatural because they fear what they cannot regulate. They built systems, titles, traditions, reputations, and councils, not to serve people, but to regulate divine movement. This model of behavior is actually the anatomy of a gatekeeper. I've spoke on gatekeepers in the past, but I'm going to give a snippet because it will better define what I'm trying to say, because basically that's their role, right? Because gatekeepers don't always look hostile. They can be polished, they can appear holy, they can cite the Bible, they can heal, they have gifts and talents. They can be helpful, wise, and even humble, but their motive is hidden in how they respond to the gifted. If your arrival, it triggers their defensiveness, their competition, their fear, their jealousy, their territorial behavior, you're looking at a gatekeeper. And spiritual monopolies, they run on scarcity, having you believe that is not enough. It's you have to go through levels to get there because they don't have room. There's only a few that can be selected, and if you're selected, you should be honored, right? They operate also on secrecy when they tell lies, and they will have others believe that they have the exclusive group and their emotional depth, because that's what they run on, and they are manufactured in authority. They create the belief that only we know God correctly, and this belief becomes the foundation of your power. Because the gifted don't need intermediaries, you don't need permission, validation, or entry into their hierarchy. Because you walk with an ancient backing, you're familiar by now, an unfiltered connection, a calling beyond human counsel, a presence that reveals dishonesty, and a discernment that interrupts control. Monopolies build their power with titles, but chosen individuals, they rise from lineage, and they recruit by safety, given the illusion of safety, community, identity, protection, and recognition. And then they train people to fear leaving, fear questioning, fear independence, and fear spiritual responsibility. When someone breaks free, the system reacts. The gatekeepers retaliate. The rumors begin to spread. The fear is used as a weapon. Guilt becomes a trap. Loyalty is weaponized. and isolation becomes a punishment. When people talk about spiritual control, they often imagine rituals, symbols, or intimidating figures, right? But the truth is much softer, much smoother, more disguised, because the most dangerous spiritual monopolies are the ones, or not the ones that is bold with authority, right? They're the quiet ones. They're the ones who stand before the people appearing calm, composed, and their tone is rehearsed. So they may speak softly, but beneath the softness is a claim, an unspoken insistence that they alone know how to interpret heaven. And this is how monopolies are born, not with drama or the obvious control, and not even with aggression, but with subtle claims to ownership. Because the moment someone believes they are the only doorway between God and the people, that moment something dangerous begins. Something that starts to reshape communities, rewrite expectations, and distort divine flow until human authority replaces heavenly instruction. The ones who were told they needed approval they never asked for, the ones who carried a calling that was too big for the systems around them, the ones who learned very early that people would rather control your destiny than celebrate it. Let me tell you something. There has always been a war between divine calling and human control. Always. Heaven speaks freely. Humans attempt to regulate that frequency, that dialogue, that exchange of information, whether or not your ears can really hear without them. Because heaven chooses unexpectedly. Humans attempt to assign qualifications. So heaven moves in silence. Humans form committees to interpret the silence. And the tragedy is this, I call it a tragedy. Many people follow human systems long before they ever learn how to follow their own spiritual awareness. Some of you were raised in environments where one person, one family, one circle, or one house acted like they had exclusive access to God. They acted like the rest of the world needed permission slips to hear heaven clearly. They wanted to decide who deserved revelation and who didn't, who could speak and who needed to stay quiet, who was spiritually ready and who needed more time to grow. Those were assessments. Those were attempts at control. And because the moment someone can label you not ready, they can keep you under them. And the moment they can keep you under them, they can determine how much of your destiny you're allowed to touch or operate in. And that's the monopoly. That's the danger. And that's the part that gifted individuals are unaware of because they're so trusting and they become dependent on the spiritual leader. Because monopolies convince people that guidance and control are the same thing. They are not. Control restricts you. Guidance empowers your voice. Control edits your voice. Guidance strengthens your discernment. Control replaces your discernment. Guidance leads you to God, but control, it leads you back to them. They want to be the source. They want to be the sole authority on whether or not God has something to say to you. And some of you may have been confused your entire life because you thought you were rebellious or difficult or hard to lead, when in reality, you simply resisted being controlled. You felt something in your spirit that would not allow a human to sit where only God belongs in your life. And so you weren't rebellious. And gifted individuals never fit inside monopolies. Your calling is too loud, your presence is too disruptive, and your lineage is too deep, and your assignment is too unusual. And so people who wanted control couldn't tolerate you, not because you were wrong, but because you were right. You were too authentic and spiritually awake. You walked in the room and their influence began to weaken, or so they believed. And you discerned something that they were hiding. And you saw through that and you sensed that there was an agenda behind their actions. And that's when the monopoly begins fighting you, because monopolies don't fear the gifted, they fear exposure. So they fear the moment when someone walks in with unfiltered discernment, the type of insight that does not need their language, their rituals, or their validations to be real. They fear the moment the people realize God has been speaking directly to them all along. So monopolies do everything they can to maintain the illusion that calling must be processed through them. And so they claim to be covering you, guiding you, evaluating you, protecting you. But behind those words is a desire to limit you and your access to your gifts, to your calling. And you don't need a barrier. The gifted, the anointed, the spiritually sensitive, you walk with a depth that cannot be contained by human systems. Your calling is organic, ancient, reinforced by a lineage that predates any institution. You have spiritual instincts that can't be trained into silence. So when you enter a space, you don't ever come alone. You come with historical backing. You come with ancestors who prayed for this moment. And you come with a destiny that was shaped long before someone tried to claim ownership over your spiritual development. And this is why monopolies crack when you show up. See, you are ungoverned in the best way. You are uncontrollable in the sacred sense. And you are also unhindered in the divine sense. And the system that wants ownership over the spiritual lives of others cannot survive someone like you, because monopolies require compliance. And the gifted, chosen, and anointed walk in conviction. Monopolies require dependence. The chosen walk in connection. Monopolies require silence, and the chosen walk in revelation. Monopolies require followers, and the chosen walk with purpose. That's difference. Major difference. Are they operating in purpose, or they're operating to build a following, to appear to prove to themselves that they are someone special, right? And so you walk in your purpose. You don't need a following, because God funds your purpose. You don't need to trick individuals, lie to individuals, tell sad stories to individuals. You don't require any validation outside of yourself, because you don't have any needs outside of yourself to operate in your purpose. Everything you need is within you, and there will always be, if you need require resources, there will always be a connection that will assist with your purpose. Monopolies require followers because also they take advantage. They use their gifts, their talents, and their labor for free. And they demand or convince or manipulate minds to have individuals devote their life, commit their resources to them, while in fact, that individual or family or group is struggling to operate in their power, because they're giving away all their resources, even their own ways of being and operating in their gifts and their anointing. So the monopoly tries everything to minimize you, mislabel you, isolate you, gossip about you, question your legitimacy, create distrust around your name, twist your motives, make you feel like your spiritual instincts are wrong. So they punish you for growing without them. But no matter what they did, you kept rising, because your calling was not planted in their soil, it was planted in God's. So you belong to something they did not build, something they did not prepare you for or prepare for you, and something they did not assign to you. And the moment you realize that, the monopoly will lose its hold. Somebody listening right now is in that exact moment. The moment when the system starts losing its claim over you, the moment you stop depending on human approval, and the moment your discernment becomes louder than their opinions, the moment your lineage calls you forward, the moment your assignment wakes up inside you. And when this happens, you will notice people who once seemed confident will suddenly become restless around you because they don't know how to sit comfortably around someone heaven has chosen without their permission. See, you trigger the insecurity that hides behind their authority. You bring out the truth they've been avoiding, and you reveal the gaps in their motives. So the last thing they need for you to do is to enlighten who they spend time manipulating. Because as you are invested in your purpose and committed, they are invested and committed to their motives. And see, you expose the part of them that wants to control more than they serve. Your presence disturbs, it dismantles, and it disrupts because monopolies can only stand when everyone around them is spiritually asleep. And you woke up. You woke up to your calling, your lineage, your assignment, your discernment, and your divine connection. And once you awaken, you cannot go back to being owned. You cannot go back to being silenced. You cannot go back to living beneath your spiritual identity. You were not made to fit into systems that limit your access to God. You were not made to submit to monopolies that is built on fear. And you were not made to play small to protect someone else's influence. So oftentimes gifted individuals will point out what they see because you were made to walk freely. You were made to hear clearly, and you were made to follow divine instructions boldly. And so you were made to live without spiritual chains. Some people are afraid of you because they don't understand that heaven marks individuals long before humans recognize them. You don't become chosen when people applaud you. You were chosen when people ignored you. You don't become chosen when someone endorses you. You were chosen when no one believed you. You don't become chosen when a monopoly approves you. You were chosen before the monopoly even existed. Monopolies always collapse in silence before they collapse in public. The moment heaven starts calling the anointed out of controlled environments, the system is already dying. The moment truth starts making its way into the heart of the people, the monopoly is already awakening and it's weakening. The moment someone starts questioning what they were taught to fear, the monopoly is already unraveling. And the moment you step inside your spiritual identity with boldness, the monopoly is already defeated. You don't have to fight them. You don't have to argue with them. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to justify your calling. Just walk in what you were sent to walk in. Just honor the one who sent you. Just trust your divine instincts and just remain true to your assignment. When you do that, their power dissolves, their influence shrinks, their intimidation fails, and the monopoly begins to fade because nothing built on control can stand against someone who walks in truth, and that is you. You are a carrier of truth. You are a breaker of monopolies. You are a disruptor of spiritual oppression. So you are a living contradiction to systems that try to limit divine access. You're a child of a lineage that refuses to bow to human control. And you may be told that you don't fit in, but you were not positioned to fit in. You are here to expose. You are positioned to liberate. You are being positioned to awaken others and awaken within yourself to the truth, educating yourself, right? Developing your gifts. And maybe under divine membership, not membership, but divine mentorship, because you are here to restore divine order and to the room or an environment. The monopoly begins to question, who are you? And it's not because you may have entered boldly, but because you are free and they see that you are free. You are free from the control of an enemy, right? Of your freedom and their freedom. So they see you walking in that freedom, walking in that identity, walking in that calling, walking with your lineage, and walking in that authority. Thank you for visiting my channel. Stay covered, stay conscious, stay undefeated. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.